Hey everyone! So even though Fatalis has been out for a very long time now, I keep seeing a lot of people having issue doing the fight with the bow. Whether you're a bow main but it's your first time fighting Fatalis, or you fought Fatalis before but just not with the bow, it can be a very challenging fight with this weapon. So I'm gonna do my best to break down the fight and give insights on how to tackle the biggest issues. This guide will be more aimed towards people that are new to the Fatalis fight, but I will also try to give insights for more experienced players as I go along. So in this guide we're gonna start by looking at builds for the fight, then we're gonna talk about the fights in general and what to look for, and finally we're gonna go phase by phase and give specific advice for each phase. So let's start off with the builds for the fight. I'm gonna be showing you a few builds, and the first one is a pre-Fatalis build. So since Fatalis is the very last boss, I will be assuming that you have access to everything pre-Fatalis. That includes every weapon, every armor, but also every decorations. So the only things that I will not include is AT Velkhana and Fatalis himself. If you are not able to make this build or something similar, I would suggest that you grind a bit more before doing this fight, at least solo. And this is what the build looks like. We're gonna be using a mix of Safi and Velkhana for critical elements and Alatrian Bow. This build has excellent damage, it has health boost 3 and it has evade window 3, which is pretty important for Fatalis. For a fight like this, I strongly suggest to have health boost 3 if you're not very used to the fight, and a good amount of evade window that I usually don't think is necessary is really helpful for this fight for a few reasons that I'm gonna talk about later. And since Fatalis does not clagger, you're gonna have to make your own openings for the clutch claw tenderize, so the shaver decoration is a must-have. Now once you have access to all the endgame gear, there is two ways you can build for Fatalis. The first one is using the Alatrian Bow, and contrary to common belief, it is the most DPS you can get outside of Heroic's Bow. And this is what the set looks like. It is the typical Fatalis and Velkhana Gamma mix set. So it does excellent damage, and you can see that on this one I don't run health boost 3, so it's very tight, you have to know the fight very well. I did slot in some evade window, because I think it's pretty nice on Fatalis. Now if you can imagine yourself doing Fatalis without health boost, you can do the same build with some health boost 3. I did have to take away some evade window for this build, but it's a choice you have to make. Now there is a reason people say that you usually play Fatalis Bow on Fatalis, and it is because with Heroics this is the most damage you can get on Fatalis with Bow. But even outside of Heroics, you can get very close damage to the Alatrian build, but with a ton more comfort. So if we look at this build, we can see that of course we have the Fatalis set bonus, so extra stamina, extra health, we have evade window maxed out, and we have tool specialist too. So it's a lot of comfort, and the damage is very similar to the Alatrian Bow, it's just a little bit lower. So for most people, I will recommend to use the raw build against Fatalis, just because the huge amount of extra comfort usually makes up for the little bit less damage you get. As for the mental, I strongly suggest to use evasion and temporal, and I'm gonna go over why during the fight. Now before we take a look at each phase specifically and all of his moves, I want to talk about the fight in general and what to look for. For me, there are two golden rules in Fatalis that you need to follow in order to stay alive. The first one is you need to always be close to Fatalis. If he backs up, you need to follow him right away. If he slithers away, you need to follow him instantly. All of his most dangerous attacks are when you're far away from him. A lot of them have safe spots when you're close to him or just under his neck. And the second golden rule is to not overcommit. Now this rule is true on every monster, but it is especially true on Fatalis. If you overcommit even just a little bit, you will die from a lot of his attacks. So when we take a look at each phase specifically, I will point out why and how you can not overcommit to avoid those moves. The thing about Fatalis that makes him difficult is not his moveset, because his moveset is pretty straightforward and is not overly complicated. The difficulty about Fatalis is that most of his moveset is made to force you out of position. And that's why on this fight you'll see a lot of newer players say something like, "Oh, I just got unlucky, there's nothing I could have done," when they die. Where in fact, it's just positioning, and that's what Fatalis does. It puts you out of position and then it kills you with one of his moves. The zone that you will be targeting is the chest. Unfortunately, even though the commander says that he's still a monster and his head should be a weak point, well, for ranged, it's just not a weak point. So that's one thing that makes the fight a lot more difficult for bow, is that since you're not gonna be targeting the head, you're not gonna be breaking it, and so in the last phase you're gonna have to deal with these full blue flames, which is at first can be very scary. So we'll talk about that later, but for now just know that you should be targeting his chest only. Now there is one quick thing I want to mention, is the use of smoke bombs. For some reasons on this fight, you can completely abuse this item to make him lose track of you and go into a 6 seconds or so animation where he looks for you, which gives you a big opening in a lot of situations. The way you use it is when Fatalis is finishing up an animation, you can use a smoke bomb just as he finishes the animation, and if he's targeting you, he will enter this animation where he's looking for you. It works after most attacks, and I will let you experiment with it, but the most common times to use it is, for example, after a wallbang, like on this video, and you can see that after the roars, he starts looking for me. You can use it after a binder, as Fatalis is standing up. Or you can use it as Fatalis is landing after one of his novas. There are more ways to use it, but I will let you experiment with it. Those are just ideas that are very easy to execute. Okay, so now let's take a look at phase 1 of the fight. So first off, to make him leave phase 1, you have to make him go down to 77% HP. So you pretty much have to take a quarter of his health. In phase 1, he only has access to a limited amount of his moves. He does not have the most dangerous moves yet. So the first thing you want to do in phase 1 is to tenderize his chest. There are 2 ways you can do it. The first one is to wait for a safe attack. So this includes the triple fireball or the zigzag fire line. Or you can do like I do in this video and use the smoke bomb to make a safe opening for the clutch claw tenderize. You can choose either strategy, they both work just fine. If you don't use the smoke bomb, you want to watch out for the pin. If you don't use a safe attack to use your tenderize, there is a chance that he does a pin and you just die right away. Now when he's standing up in phase 1, he's not very dangerous just yet, but there is still a couple of things you need to watch for. The first one is the first attack designed to punish your overcommitment, and it is the fast pole slam. One thing you need to get used to on Fatalis is that he has a lot of fast attacks. You cannot be caught doing a dash or another attack while he's doing one of these moves. If you pay attention at this clip and the rest of the video, you can see that every time he finishes an attack, I am waiting for the next attack to start to react. I don't start a dash or an attack before it starts in new animation. And of course the second thing you want to watch out for is the pin. He has very low tolerance to damage in the first phase when he's standing up, so he's going to be falling very quickly and you do not want to be pinned when he falls down. Now after he falls down and you hopefully get the wallbang, my recommendation as far as positioning goes is to stay just in front of his chest. He has a higher chance to do his long bite attack, which is a very good opening for bow and allows you to easily punish him very efficiently. Just be careful because you can mix it up with a fast bite, which is not as easy to evade, and you cannot punish it very heavily. As you can see on this clip, with the smoke bomb on the wallbang and good positioning, he almost does only bites and the phase 1 is almost instantly over. However, even with good positioning, he will not always be that nice, so we're gonna take a look at some of his most dangerous attacks from phase 1. The first one that can cause issues to newer player is what I call the fire hose. He will do a half circle in front of him of fire breath that does one-shot you and that you cannot iframe if you don't have any evade window. However, there is a tail to this attack to see it coming. If you look at this clip, you see that he always backpedals before it does it. So as soon as he backpedals, you can see I'm heading towards his head, and you have more than enough time to get behind his neck and be in a safe spot. So once again, it goes to show that you should always stay close to Fatalis to be safe. Now in phase 1, he will tend to spam one move that is very annoying, and it's the fireball into fly. And it is more annoying than it is dangerous, so the first goal should be to avoid it, but if you feel adventurous, you can try to land the spread as he comes down from the fly, you can see on this clip. It can seem to be difficult, but when you get the hang of it, it's fairly consistent. Now one move that he can tend to spam and that is extremely dangerous is the slithering. Now the slithering hitbox is fairly large, but it's not always active. It is only active when he's moving forward, and it does pauses in between the crawls. So if you time your evade during the crawl animation, you will actually evade the attack. Let's look at this one for example. I'm in a particularly bad positioning for the slithering, and I'm still able to iframe the attack. I'm gonna try to roughly show on the screen where the attack frames, so you can get a better idea of when to start evading. And keep in mind that this is one situation where having evade window helps to evade this attack. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Okay, so as you can see, as long as you can roll, you should be able to get out of the slithering in most situations. The only real dangerous situation is if you're stuck on the wall and he slithers on the wall, because the hitbox will stay in the same spot, and it's gonna be very hard for you to avoid it. If you feel comfortable and you're in a good positioning, you can even punish this move. You can land a spread on his chest as he slithers by you, as you can see on the screen. Okay, so that's it for phase 1. Let's quickly take a look at phase 2. Phase 2 is very similar to phase 1, it just gets 3 new abilities. The first one is that he's now able to fly, but this is not an issue at all because you can make him land instantly by using a smoke bomb. The second one is that he's now able to transition between 4 legs and 2 legs in between attacks. So you will need to get used to which attack makes him transition and which attack does not, and get ready to adapt your playstyle depending on which position he's in. And finally, he gets one new attack. He can now put a portal on the floor that explodes after a few seconds when he's on 2 legs. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when phase 2 starts is to put your temporal mantle, and you need to have heavy artillery 2 on your temporal mantle. You're gonna grab the binder and quickly go to the ballista. Before he starts seeing you, you need to put smoke bombs so he lands right away. He's gonna lose track of you and he's gonna face you in the ballista, but he's actually not going to attack you, at least not for a little bit. You should be able to freely shoot almost the entire ballista on his chest before he starts doing anything. Just as a side note, if he flinches from his chest, you need to wait for the animation to be over to keep shooting with the ballista, or it will not fall over. After that, it's very similar to phase 1, the only difference is he can now transition to 2 legs and 4 legs in between attacks. So you need to get used to that. He has one new move when he's standing up, and it's one of the first moves that he has to force you out of position. He's gonna put a puddle on the ground that's going to explode after a couple seconds. You need to dash or roll out of the puddle, but be very ready because as soon as the puddle explodes, it will try to catch you out of position. So you need to be able to react instantly for the next attack. Phase 2 is very close to phase 1, so that's pretty much it about this phase. We're gonna move on to phase 3. So phase 3 can be the scariest part of the fight for a bow player if you're not comfortable with the fight just yet. He has a lot of new moves, and even the moves that he keeps from the first and second phase are performed a lot faster than they used to be. However, I want to make something clear, he does not have additional moves when he has blue flames. It's the exact same moveset, he just does a ton more damage. With bow, you get one-shotted by almost all the attacks anyway, even without blue flames, so it looks a lot scarier, but it's actually not that different than regular flames. The only thing you need to be very careful of is the cone. and the downward breath attacks, because even one tick with blue flames is going to absolutely kill you instantly. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the most dangerous attacks of Fatalis in P3, and we're gonna start with his moveset on 4 legs. So the attack that causes the most issue to people at first is the 360, as you can see on the screen. All you have to do to evade this attack is to go in the other side of where he starts the beam. So as you can see on the screen, he starts on his left side, so I go to his right side. As long as you react fast enough, you can be in the worst position ever, you'll still have plenty of time to evade the attack. You can see on this clip that he changed 2 360s in a row, and on the second one, I'm very badly positioned, but I'm still able to evade it. One key advice that I can give you to evade this attack is when it's on 4 legs, always assume that it's going to do the 360 next, so that way you'll be ready for it. And the only new move that he has on 4 legs is the triple fireball. It's actually a variation of the charge fireball into fly, and this is actually a much better move for Bo. All you have to do is to go under his stomach on his crotch area and you'll be totally safe. He's going to chain 3 fireballs, but you're gonna be safe if you're under his stomach for all 3 fireballs, so you can finish the whole thing completely safely. The first instinct of people when they see this move for the first time is to run away from Fatalis, where in fact you're just completely safe under his stomach. Please note that he can do this attack on 4 legs, but he can also do it on 2 legs, so just be mindful for that. Outside of that, the only new attacks that he has in phase 3 is the side-to-side fire. And as you can see on the screen, the best way to stay safe on this attack is to stay just under his chest, as usual. So you're probably noticing a common trend is that as long as you're under his chest, you're mostly safe from every attack, and you can just evade what's coming next. Okay, so let's talk strategy for phase 3. If you're not too comfortable with the fight just yet, it's probably the phase that's going to be the most scary for you. So you will want to restrain his movements as much as possible for this phase. We're gonna bind him as soon as he's finishing the super critical animation. If you're not comfortable evading this animation, you can use a smoke bomb to make him land safely. After the super critical animation, he has 50% HP left. He's gonna do 3 novas. The first one will be at 41%, the second one will be at 27%, and the last one will be at 6%. So that means that the first one is gonna happen very quickly. You just have to take out 9% of his health to proc the first nova of phase 3. So with the binder and maybe 1 smoke bomb, you almost don't have to do anything to make him do the first nova. And that's good because usually at this time, you don't have any mental, so you probably don't feel too safe right now. Now there are multiple ways to use the paralysis and the sleep for this fight. The sleep I usually don't use at all, but you can use it if you want when the Dragonator is enabled to do more damage on the wake up. Now as far as paralysis goes, my suggestion if you're struggling with the fight is to use it after the first nova of phase 3. You can use a smoke bomb when he lands, like I do on this clip, to make him look for you for a few seconds, which should help you proc the paralysis safely. The reason I'm suggesting doing it now is because you don't have your mental back, most likely. So if you don't know the fight very well just yet, it's good to restrain his movements as much as possible, as long as you don't have your mentals, because you're not very safe. So the second nova of phase 3 is at 27%. So that means that for this nova, you have to take out at least 14% HP from the previous nova. You won't just get there with the paralysis, you need a bit more damage, so just be careful and know that he's gonna do a few more attacks before leaving. After the next nova, he has about 27% HP left, and you should have your mentals back at this time, so you should be feeling a little bit more confident and safe. So at this point you should have 1 binder left, and the Dragonator should be arriving soon, if it's not there already. So what you can do is use the binder after the second nova to gain a little bit more time and do a little bit more damage safely before having to finish Fatalis. On a side note, the Dragonator will arrive 5 minutes exactly after he turns super critical, and he will do 5% of damage per spike, so if you land both spikes, he will do 10% damage of Fatalis health. You also need to be extremely careful because if you're trying to bait Fatalis to the Dragonator, he will most likely not come to you and just spam fireballs and long range attacks to kill you, which are very dangerous. So overall, with the two binders, the Paralysis and the Dragonator, you can restrain Fatalis' movements for most of phase 3. So my suggestion is to use those tools when you don't have your mental, so that you can restrain his movements and make the fight a little bit easier. Remember that the key to this fight in phase 3 is to not panic. Most of his moves are exactly the same, and his new moves, while they can be scary at first with the blue flames, are actually pretty big openings. So once you're used to evading them, they're a very big damage window for you. Oh, and one more thing you need to be mindful for is when he does his Nova, if you're far away from the safe spot, you absolutely need to evade the wind pressure. If you evade the wind pressure, no matter where you are, you will have time to sheath and run to the edge of the map. The timing is kinda tight, and that's another reason why I suggest to have evade window. You need to evade when he's taking off to start flying. If you miss the evade and you're too far away from the safe spot, there's a good chance that you'll die to it. But that's pretty much it for this video. I'm sure there are some things that I didn't cover because there's a lot of information, and I really hope it helped at least some of you. Let me know if you have questions in the comments of things that I didn't talk about, and I'll try to help you there. Alright, thank you so much and see you next time.